Hey, welcome back to A Widow's Heart. If you've ever wondered whether you'll laugh again, dream again, or even feel like yourself again after losing the love of your life, you're not alone. Today, you'll hear from Rachel Powel, a previous guest on A Widow's Heart, whose journey through heartbreaking loss reminds us that while grief changes us, it doesn't have to define us. My prayer is that somewhere in today's conversation, you'll find a little hope, a little peace, and another reason to trust Jesus with your heart. Well, welcome back to A Widow's Heart, another episode where I think you are going to be inspired and encouraged along on your journey as a widow. My returning guest is Rachel Powel. I'm so glad to have you back. And it says online that you're a speaker, an author, an advanced certified grief recovery specialist, and a widow coach. And that all came along in the aftermath of the death of your husband, which you share. I wanted to let everyone know Rachel Powell's first episode is episode 56. So if you want to go back and listen to that powerful story of grief and faith and redemption, you might want to check it out. Again, A Widow's Heart, episode 56. But you're doing so much for the community of widows, Rachel. I just wanted to have you back and catch up with you.
Yes, I'm so happy to be here. It's truly an amazing thing that only the Lord can do when you have life change through tragedy and somehow end up doing what you would rather be doing more than anything else. It's a kind of resurrection and redemptive plan that he had. So I'm grateful to be here.
Yeah. Well, and for those who don't know your story, and again, I hope you go back and listen to episode 56, but can you just let us know a little bit about your story? You had such a love story. You and your husband both so young when he went to heaven.
Yes. So Andre was an incredible man of God. We met in high school youth group, married at 19. We immediately were helping raise my niece and then nephew who came and my next niece. So we had those three children that we were raising as our own, and we added a biological one in the mix. We were serving actively in the church and just really wanted to live a life of purpose for the kingdom and pour out to other people. Andre wanted to bring clean water on a global scale. He finished with his PhD in civil engineering and started his dream business. But unfortunately, our life really spiraled and crashed over just a single year, not even quite a year. And there was a lot that happened in that year. There was an addiction that had resurfaced in his life, but really he became a different person because he had always been the most humble, teachable, accountable man. And instead, he became really defensive of that addiction and angry at me for drawing boundaries. So the year was a lot of confusion, very difficult in navigating the changes that were happening. And ultimately, we lost him by suicide in June of 2019. And that was just 5 days before our youngest even turned 2. So I had 4 kids between the ages of 1 and 13, I believe. And then we went into the COVID pandemic, and it was an extremely difficult and dark time, not only widowhood, losing my husband, suicide loss that has other layers that are added into what you already feel, the questions and the guilt and the losses of widowhood. It was extremely dark. I became so low that I attempted twice within just over a year's time. And then really the Lord gave me an epiphany moment. You know, that verse, Psalm 118:17 says, I will not die, but will live and will proclaim what the Lord has done. And the ways I'd been pouring out for my children, but really was running myself into the ground, had to change. And I had to make healing my number one priority. I had to dig into my own heart, my body, my mind, my spirit, healing to be able to continue and to make it. And over years of pouring into those things and really prioritizing my own healing, God did amazing things. It's been about 7 years now, I have been remarried for 3 of those years, and I'm blending a family of 7, and the Lord had also called me out of nursing. I'd been a registered nurse for 14 years, primarily in critical care, and although I still have my active license, I primarily do widow coaching and serving Christian widows through that and through my virtual community, and then I lead people through the grief recovery method as well. So my whole future, career, everything has changed. It's incredible that I would never have imagined within the span of a few years, I would have a different home in a different city, a different husband, really a different family, a different life, and that it could still be really good and beautiful. That was the part that was so hard to grasp in the beginning because it felt like all the good things were over, and that wasn't true.
Rachel Powell is my guest on A Widow's Heart, and your website, hopespeaker.com. It made me cry when I went back and reread it again. I felt like I died when my husband did. I thought my life would never be as good again. I believed peace, love, and joy were out of reach. And boy, in those first moments, those first days after the death of a spouse, we feel that. We really feel that. And I think that we're just really ripe for the enemy too,
Mhm.
uh, to just
Absolutely.
go after you,
A
and you live
super
that.
vulnerable time. Yeah,
Yeah.
so vulnerable for widows in so many ways. I mean, financially, emotionally, mentally, relationally, our purity, so many ways are we vulnerable. And the area of warfare and spiritual attack, I wish I had had the spiritual eyes back then that I had now to see that important part of the dynamic, both in the last year of his life and afterward. It became very apparent, the darkness and the struggle. We're not fighting against flesh and blood, but against powers and principalities. And that was a very real part of my widowhood journey.
I don't know if we talked about this, when I first spoke with you, in your first episode, but you had 3 children,
I
is what
had
you mentioned?
4 at the time that he
Mm.
passed away. My nieces and nephew
Yeah.
were mine and with me, and then 1 biological daughter as well.
Now, how did you manage that as a newly widowed person and dealing with these feelings? Like you said, you even attempted to take your own life, twice. How did you navigate through that?
Mhm. Well, my children were my whole world. I loved them deeply. Even though I was still working as a registered nurse, my hours had gone down because I was homeschooling kids. I mean, they have such a deep part of my heart. They are
Yeah.
so important to me. And so in the loss, I really prioritized and focused on them in in a lot of ways that was good. Their healing, they all had counselors. I got them into specialty counseling and support that they needed. We had a number of different diagnoses that came up between all of us after he passed away. And so the nurse in me, the compassionate heart, the caretaker was very good at trying to plug all of the holes for everybody else and to get them what they needed. Some of them stayed in the homeschool co op, others needed to get into an IEP, which is like a support program through the public school system. And I had one entering preschool nearby. So at that time, I literally had 3 different schools
Mm.
going on, one too young to be in school, and it was just, in hindsight, too much to manage. My attempt to take care of everyone the best I could, as I mentioned, did not include myself, and I spent all of my time trying to put the oxygen mask first on everybody else, even though I know in my head it has to come on us first to be able to serve them. It's still the primary drive was always laying down my life for my kids. And I, in a sense, became like a human bridge for them to walk across. And I inevitably,
Wow.
not caring for myself, fell on them. And so, as I was so low and so discouraged, feeling so guilty, I was in so much pain, so much pain. The weight of what I was carrying, especially with the pandemic, it all felt so unbearable
Yeah.
that I felt I was failing as a mom. And so when you look at that dynamic, I have had people ask me, how could you think of suicide when you'd lost your husband, like all these children had was you. And I felt like I was failing them too. I felt like this was my job to take care of them and I wasn't doing it well. And so the people I was there for were hurting and suffering under a mom that didn't have it together enough and that it was better for them if I also left. And so, yeah, the twisting of the mind, the struggles with guilt and shame and the darkness and a number of other factors, it was just so much to try to cope with. A lot of compound losses.
What was it? Who was it that maybe helped you turn that corner for the first time?
Well, I had that epiphany moment
Yeah.
with the Lord. I mean, I had spent a lot of time in the Word and in prayer. Worship was my breath. It was how I thought. I was close with Him. However, that change of mind and heart had to come through the Spirit, and there was a real moment of surrender. I did have some people trying to support in different ways. The dynamics in my family were very complex due to the children and me
Mhm.
raising them. It was already a complicated situation, as well as the church that we had attended it was a very painful experience because as my husband had declined, and there was even abuse in our marriage and illegal things going on. Their counsel had constantly been for me to submit instead of advocating or addressing abuse, reporting anything. So in the aftermath of everything, that was another thing was I had to move churches. The Spirit was so faithful to lead me. But when you're already facing so many losses and in need of support, changing an entire community was more loss. And so it really wasn't dependent on just outside people. I, in my heart, had to come to a repentance moment of surrender of the way that I had been trying to operate as a widow that was not sustainable, and to really allow the Lord to work in power the way that He was ready and wanting to.
Mm. It's a heart-wrenching story, but so much hope through you and what you are doing. Your ministry has just flourished. It's so amazing, and I have recommended your website and your newsletter to so many new widows, as we come along aside new widows now and stuff, and I'm just like, "You've gotta go, hopespeaker.com." Go to hopespeaker.com and see what is available there through Rachel Powell. And one of the first things I think that you worked on was it's called a newly widowed checklist. And can you talk about that? I mean, no one wants that handbook. I mean, but boy,
Right.
thank God it's there.
Yes, as many of us know, that's such a disorienting and confusing time. In the aftermath of losing my husband, his identity was stolen immediately.
Oh,
You're already trying to figure out what is it that my husband did? What were the responsibilities? How do I take them over? Where are the passwords? What is our financial
right.
situation? The logins, the house and car maintenance. There's just so much. So, single parenting children that through my experience and then also my research, speaking with financial advisors, I created that checklist so that new widows have some handholds as they're navigating that, particularly again, that area of identity theft, because it's unfortunate, but a reality that people watch the
I was
obituaries
going
to
to
take
ask you, they're
advantage.
just sitting there waiting to watch the obituaries. Oh,
And we're in such a fog. I was in such a fog. There was a pile of mail on his office desk that was building up, and I did not realize until I got around to opening all of those. Someone was trying to open bank accounts, do things with loans, making purchases. And that was another thing. I remember spending hours and hours sitting at the police station dealing with paperwork and reports. I was wearing my husband's shirt in my grief with our rings around my neck. And it was just, it's an experience I don't want anyone to have to go through. We're already going through so much pain. So why don't we help with the things that we can so they're not added on top of their grief? So the Newly Widowed Checklist is one free resource at newlywidowedchecklist.com. I also have prayers for widows. That was another big pain point, is at nighttime it was so lonely and the empty, cold bed. It was just very painful after running with children and needs. When it got quiet was when a lot of the thoughts and pain would come to the surface as I laid down. And so the Lord led me in that. It was actually through a time of fasting and prayer that He told me now's the time to record some of those prayers so that widows would have something to just play over themselves. They can download them and play them over and over. There's a prayer for comfort, a prayer for sleep, and a prayer for hope. And that's at prayersforwidows.com. So that's another free resource. I have a few different things. And then I send out my weekly newsletter, my Get Your Hopes Up email. And yeah, I am blessed to be able to bless my widow sisters. Christian widow sisters, they're just my favorite people. We're not supposed to have favorites, but my favorite people. I just love them.
I
Their
tell you,
faith
here
and their heart is so pretty.
with our nonprofit that I was blessed to help launch years ago, has grown and just so much, and when we have benchmark events, but the most important things are the widow support groups where widows meet widows. And a dear friend, Carol, lost her husband, Alan, just in January. And I think that you addressed this even in one of your blogs or something too. It's just, we feel that, fresh almost. And I brought her to our spring luncheon, and I'm looking at, I think the first one, maybe there were 12 women or something. And now there's like over 200,
Mm,
and I'm like, it's sad, but it's not sad. It's because they're connecting and getting that help that you so need when you're just finding your way through the fog.
right. Right. And what a blessing to have other widows because there's a lot of wonderful help and resources. And I'm an advocate for counseling and therapy. I did it weekly for 5 years straight myself.
Yep.
It's an
I'm
important
raising
part
my
of the
hand.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's such a blessing in my life, and it's particularly for acute, suicidal ideation, really intense depression, anxiety. Through coaching, when people are experiencing those situations, that's a requirement for them to have a counselor, therapist alongside as well. So I'm a big fan. However, there is just something about having other people who get it to come alongside you or to guide you because you don't have to explain the unexplainable, and you don't have to try to get someone to have a grasp of what it's like to lose your person. And when someone understands, that is a unique kind of gift that, in my opinion, no letters or things behind your name can make up for. It's just such a valuable part to have that camaraderie with other widows.
I'm talking with Rachel Powell on A Widow's Heart. And yeah, the official title is an advanced certified grief recovery specialist. Tell me about that and how you decided to do that, especially with your background as an RN and things. It's just came together incredibly.
Yes. So when I had that epiphany moment with the Lord that I really needed to pour into my healing and walk a different path of widowhood, I was on a widowhood path and it was a really dark one and it wasn't going anywhere good. And so I had to get on a different path. That was part of the hope He gave me was that there's a path forward. It is that we're walking through the valley of the shadow of death, but we're walking through it. I like to say with our shepherd, we're not setting up camp there. And so
Oh,
a lot of the
I
things I
love
knew.
that. We are not setting up camp.
Yes,
And
we're not stopping to pitch our tent and stay and live in the valley of the shadow of death. We're walking through it with the shepherd. And so it turned out that a lot of the things I pursued for my own healing, very intentionally and invested in, were tools that I now use. And the grief recovery method is one of those. So the Grief Recovery Institute has been around and serving people for over 40 years now. They are on 6 continents, the only one being Antarctica, because who wants to live there? So
no
they're very
thanks.
what I love about it, again, as a nurse, is that it's evidence-based. The grief recovery method is the only evidence-based grief recovery program on the planet. So it has been researched and proven to be effective in helping people move forward in their grief. So yes, a lot of these tools and resources that have come about have been because I have been through them and experienced such a change, such a transformation that those were tools I wanted to use to help other people. So I am an advanced specialist and I walk people both individually through coaching and do some groups that I lead through the grief recovery method. So that is one of my tools.
Is that the same as a widow coach, or is that's
That's
different?
different. So,
Okay.
grief recovery method specialists are certified through the Institute, and I'm an advanced specialist because I can work both in person and online. Widow coaching is different. Certifications in life coaching are separate, and I use different tools and resources. Again, grief recovery method. I have training in vagus nerve regulation, which is a somatic, a body bottom up processing, as
That's
well
huge.
as
I've been hearing so much about the vagus nerve and
yes.
that
And
it's
I will
almost, isn't it shaped like a cross too? That's what
The
I
then,
remember reading.
I'm not sure about that.
You guys can look
It
it up.
touches all systems running up, and that's why it's so powerful to be able to bring regulation to however your body is manifesting dysregulation. So the reason why that feels really important to me, again, probably because of my nursing background, is because while I know the power of coaching modalities, I know the power of thought work, right? The word says we're transformed by the renewing of our mind, and our thoughts and our beliefs are incredibly powerful. I mean, the word is very, very clear about what we believe and truth and changing our mind. I mean, the word repent is literally a change of mind at the definition. It's a turning from sin, it's a turn, but it's a change of mind. And so there's a lot of power in all of those things. However, to be in that space of thought, mind work, you're in your prefrontal cortex. It's called a top-down processing, where we're doing the work in a certain space of our brain to be focused on those different thoughts and processing. However, when you are in experiences of trauma, intense pain, grief, and some of these memories, that part of your brain isn't online. You're really at the back part of
Hmm.
the brain and the amygdala and other spaces that are in a lived experience of fear and pain. And so, if this part of your brain, the front part, is not online, you cannot talk yourself out of that. And a lot of people experience a lot of shame because they're struggling with pain, and they may repeat scriptures or know truth. And you can't talk that part of your brain out of the state it's in, because it's an embodied state that you are experiencing within your human framework. And so bottom up processing tools like vagus nerve regulation can bring a calming and a regulating from the bottom, from the vagus nerve and the body up to those parts of the brain as well. So I think it's very important to do both, because these tools and resources with the body, with vagus nerve, through breath work and through other practices of noticing sensations in the body, is very, very important, that sometimes the particularly Christian community can leave out of healing or look down on. However, the value of truth and the power of the Holy Spirit, you can't leave that out of only doing tools and regulation and body work, because that isn't, we're after transformation, just regulation. So having both of those things is very important to me in the work that I do.
Rachel, I'm just, while you were talking about that, I was just going through my emails and I've saved. I never should have learned the pin button on my email because I've got like a million of your letters saved. And it was all about don't forget your brain healing. And it talks all about that. That's why I just think this is so amazing and valuable, what you do for the widow community. One thing we really don't talk about a lot either is, and I saw that beautiful picture of you and your new family. I mean, it's your family. And that's so wonderful. And as I go along in my journey alongside other widows, that's why I call this podcast A Widow's Heart. My husband died a long, long time ago, but I just have such a heart for widows like you do. I'm not as schooled as you, but boy, I've sure learned a lot from you. But you were remarried, and many widows ask me about that. How do I know if I'm ready? I don't want to be taken advantage of. Would you talk about that?
Yeah. When it comes to dating and remarriage and family blending, the Holy Spirit's leading is so important, because when we are operating from guilt, shame, or fear, whether that's we don't know what we want or need, or we're concerned about what other people are thinking and feeling. All of those ways of driving decisions don't often end up somewhere good. And so one of the tools that I use is related to what's called the Emmanuel method. And basically, to put it succinctly, it's really focusing on receiving from the Lord and not just journaling or praying or talking to him and having it left empty. That the point is that a relationship with the Lord, with the Father, with the Son, with the Spirit is reciprocal, or it's not a real relationship, right? And so that's one big focus for me, is that widows can receive guidance from the Lord and from the Holy Spirit as they're making those decisions. However, there's a lot of wisdom, general advice. I have to recommend Ron Deal and his resources for dating. He has some books, Dating and the Single Parent, the Blended Stepfather and Stepmother. And there's one for Before You Get Married that has a lot of wisdom in there as well. And being really honest with yourself, if we're really willing to look at what's driving us, like fear that we're older now and my body isn't what it is someone going to want me? My life has had a big traumatic incident. Is someone going to want this? Are they going to want to step in for my children? But when those fears are driving the decisions, I mean, we wouldn't want to be with a man who didn't have the character to see us and our children as a gift, for instance. So
Wow.
focusing on those truths instead of the fears and the shame that are driving the decisions. It's something we can do, and deciding how we are going to show up in the dating realm. And that plays out in all of those decisions where we may be looking, and who we may be getting to know. What is their character like? How are we navigating all of that? It's really, really important. And to me, someone who had just as high a focus on the Lord, living for him, a real connection with the Holy Spirit was so important to me. And I was blessed to be able to remarry Mike. And he is a man who loves the Lord, who is deep in prayer. It's like the Lord knew just what we needed. And I encourage widows in this, that we want to pray for and wait for and take steps along with God's best. Cooperate with God's best, because what he has for you, that's his best. Like, I promise you, that's going to be what you want. Someone who really loves you is someone who really receives love from the Lord and can pour that out. And in all of those decisions and the hardships that come, because there are in remarriage and in blending, it is not for the faint of heart, but I have found it's the same journey of faith all the way through, holding to the Lord, his ability to lead us as widows when we're leading our family and our lives, his ability to lead us when we're navigating dating and remarriage, and his ability to continue to lead us as the dynamic changes again when a new person enters the story. And so that's another thing I'm blessed to be able to help widows navigate one-to-one.
I have my own, I call it a BF, my big fat blended family. There's definitely challenges as well, but we
Yes.
just had our first grandson through my husband's son, Chris, and his wife Jenny.
Mm,
It's been just super
congratulations.
blessing, and yeah, it's amazing. What encouragement do you have for widows that are listening right now who are just, no, I think you've pretty much done it. Yeah, that just don't know what's next or what to do, you know?
I would encourage them in two things. It's actually been on my heart and mind this week, particularly. And one is that there is a path forward, like we talked about. Widowhood can feel like a hurricane that you're lost at sea in, or a maze you're wandering around in, dead end after dead end, and you wonder if there's even a way out or a way forward. It can feel like a thick fog. You can't see, you don't know where you're going. Is there any way out? Is this ever going to end? And that first encouragement is that there is a path forward. There are steps, and there are proven tools, and there's people who have walked it who can help, and you're not lost and stuck and trapped forever. And so really holding to that reality, that hope that there is a path forward through the valley of the shadow of death. You're not living here, we're not setting up, we're not building a home. You're passing through as the Lord leads you. And the second is to encourage them to be willing to take those steps. So when you know that there's a path forward and a step is presenting itself, to be willing to take it, you don't wait until you feel ready. You are willing to just take the first step and start. And that's how healing happens. And so there are tools like the grief recovery method, which is evidence based. There are other widows who have gone before. They're welcome to reach out to me at hopespeaker.com. I do coaching. I have my virtual Christian widow community. We talk about these things. So it's a space that I pour into on that path forward into hope. There are people, there are resources. You have to know that they're there and be willing to take the steps to invest along the journey. And you will be on a very different path in widowhood. We're not just widows. We're
Right.
kingdom widows. We're
Mhm.
kingdom widows. We're God's kingdom brides. We're his warrior brides. And that changes everything about how we're living in this season and the ones to come.
Rachel Powell is my incredible guest here on A Widow's Heart. And you mentioned again, and I did too, hopespeaker.com. And that's where you're going to find so much support and encouragement. I mean, you are such an incredible, I would say, coach, a cheerleader, just an angel guiding so many through so much with what you know from your own experience. And now is hopespeaker.com where you would get the newsletter and is it Hope Notes, I think it's called?
Yeah, you can sign up there. You could go to hopespeaker.com/library. And that is where I
Oh,
actually house all of my free resources in one. It's a place to just have encouragement for Christian widows that is free, that you can tap into, that you can return to. And so if they go there and they sign up for the Hope Library, they will get added to the email list and be able to get those weekly as well.
yeah.
Or
Oh, go ahead.
um, I was going to say, and now I'm trying to remember the URL. I can't remember that. That's probably the best way.
We'll
Yeah,
get them to hopespeaker.com and hopespeaker.com/library because
yeah.
that's I'm going to share that with a bunch of people as well. And if you'd like to learn more about advanced certified grief recovery specialist, as we've heard from Rachel today, or even looking into finding out what exactly is a Christian widow coach, you can contact her again through hopespeaker.com. And what makes you smile these days, Rachel?
The Lord has just been so faithful. I have a hope for my future that I was able to find in the darkest time of my life, and that is what I carry forward, and that is what gives me the ability to smile, because at the darkest time in my life, the Lord gave me acceptance with joy. I don't know if you've ever read Hind's Feet on High Places, but in that story, it's an allegory. There was a little flower, and its name was Acceptance with Joy, and it was growing in a desert with just drips of water. And it's a picture of us with the Lord, how we look up with our face, even in the desert, and we say, "Behold me, here I am,
Mm,
acceptance with
no,
joy,
you're
and
going to
I want
cry.
what you have for me." And if even though it was so hard, right? It was so hard to receive that, especially at that time. Acceptance with joy, I was like, this widowhood, this pain, this loss, like, are you kidding me? And yes, the Lord, to be able to come to that place of acceptance with joy has been a foundation for me that I carry forward to this very day, because I know whatever struggles I'm still facing and challenges we still have in blending families and in life in general, I can find joy through surrender, through acceptance right now. And I believe that this is just a season and there are so many possibilities ahead, because I've seen it from my darkest season to now. And so I can believe it for now and into the future. There is so much more ahead than we even know. Today's reality isn't our forever reality. And we have to just be willing to believe that there is so much more ahead for us. And that's when we can start to see the path and take the steps.
Just listening to you now, Rachel, I mean, I just had a vision in my head about that desert and just being in a desert. And then listening to you speak your hope and encouragement is like we found an oasis, really. And I hope if you're listening that you feel that way too. And reach out to Rachel if you have questions, you are looking for help to get to that next step in your journey. I mean, just an incredible, yeah, amazing person. Hopespeaker.com. And I wanted to ask you about your upcoming book. Tell me about that. That's pretty exciting.
Oh yeah, that just launched. So I was a contributing author in Scars to Stars Volume 5.
Scars to
Um,
Stars. Okay.
Scars to Stars Volume 5.
Hmm.
And I chose in my story and in my contribution to share, of course, about widowhood and to advocate for widows. The Scars to Stars series comes from the Realize Foundation, which is a suicide prevention related foundation. So I'm advocating for suicide prevention by sharing my story. However, I'm also specifically advocating for suicide prevention in the widowed because it turns out anyone who has lost a spouse is at higher risk for suicide. And suicide widows and widowers who lost their spouse that way are at an even higher risk. And so I just don't think we understand this enough to really provide the support that is needed, even from my own experience, even when you have just lost someone by suicide, and that is on the forefront of people's minds in processing through that type of loss, we miss that people around them, it's also for their loved ones, the people left behind, particularly their spouses, but anyone in their immediate family is at higher risk for suicide. And so it's not just a time for mourning that loss, it's really a time for looking around and giving support to people because it cracks the door open for people to follow. And so my contribution in that book, I really just wanted to advocate for widows and widowers related to suicide loss and to bring more awareness to that issue, particularly in the suicide prevention realm. So Scars to Stars Volume 5 launched, and we already hit 4 different topics for Amazon bestsellers, I think
Oh my
in
gosh.
grief and loss and suicide, and I can't remember the other 2. But
Yeah.
they have a wonderful series that was Volume 5, and I was a contributing author in Widow's Might. I find a lot of widows are familiar with that. That actually came through Rachel Faulkner Brown and the Never Alone Widows
Yeah.
Foundation. But that is another wonderful one, a devotional. So it has 365 days of entries that I participated in that. And I continue to blog and I love to write. There will be more to come because I enjoy sharing hope through writing.
Well, if we haven't said it enough, hopespeaker.com. Because if you're like me, I'm taking notes and I'm like, okay, I can't keep up. There's so much good stuff here and God is good and you're just a walking, talking, angel here on earth guiding so many and we just appreciate you so much. And I'm just wondering, maybe if you don't have it in front of you, maybe look up, is it prayersforwidows.org, and maybe share one of those prayers with us?
Prayersforwidows.com.
Yeah.
Yes, and so they are audio prayers that
Oh,
I
okay.
spoke and you can listen to. However, I do also have 3 written versions that are different, so I can pull that up. So yeah, Prayers for Widows is a PDF with a prayer for comfort, a prayer for sleep, and a prayer for hope. Is a written prayer, but there are also audio prayers that are different. But I would be happy to pray through this written prayer of hope. Jesus Christ, you are not just the message of hope, but the embodiment of it. In your life and resurrection, you overcame all need, pain, and death as you simply brought yourself love and abundant life. I need these things, Lord. And I have them, not as a mere recipient, but because you make your home in me, they flow from me. Christ in me, the hope of glory. Colossians 1:27. Because this is true, I don't simply ask for you to replace hopelessness with hope in my life. I ask you to powerfully transform me also to embody it in the midst of the valley of the shadow of death where I find myself. As I grieve, you weep with me. You never leave my side, and you empathize with all my losses. And while a part of me may have died when my husband did, I did not die when he died. Help me to remove the grave clothes and go free, as you said to Lazarus. Raise me to abundant life again. I choose it. I rebuke all lies that keep me from hoping and living. Abandonment, unworthiness, fear of repeated disappointment and hurt, resignation to purposelessness, or quitting. My life may never be the same good, but it can and will be so very good again. I will dare to dream and rebuild. There is more life and love ahead for me.
That is so beautiful. Thank you so much, Rachel, for taking time to encourage so many once again on A Widow's Heart.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me back. I'm so happy to see you.
Well, if today's conversation stirred something in your heart, I hope you'll remember this. Your story isn't over. God still sees you, still walks beside you, and still has purpose for your life, even on days when hope feels so far away. Thank you for spending this time with us on A Widow's Heart. Until next time, may the Lord surround you with His comfort, strengthen you with His peace, and remind you every day that you're deeply loved and never alone.